Hello, everybody, and welcome to ShowX on VTWProductions.com. And I'm apologizing about my camera. I will get that functioning here in just a moment if I can. But
That's entirely my fault.
it's just those moments of getting things last minute in and getting us going. So it
Which
happens.
is indeed my fault. I do apologize.
It's all good. It just means I have to tell the controls here to use the camera versus. Like I say, I can temporarily probably throw a different cam on, but no, I just have to tell it that I'm not doing the show solo today, and therefore can give up the camera from it.
It's not putting up with any of my crap. So for those who are not catching the hints, I literally called Wayne during the intro music there. So the show is literally just starting. We are very much just freshly live on air. The long and short of it is I got an Uber back from going shopping to do some grocery shopping, and my Uber came about 15 minutes later than I expected, which threw me off kilter entirely. So I ran into the house, all the shopping, threw it in the general direction of the kitchen, and ran through here as soon as I could. But we are here, we're together, and we're now live on YouTube, on Twitch, and wherever else we may be live. So thank you all for joining us. We very much appreciate it. I'm just joining the Twitch chat myself now, so I'll see you all there in a moment. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, and let's see. Hopefully, you'll be able to see my camera here yourself. Which there we go. It's starting. It should be starting to kick in. It's trying to catch up now that I have at least found it. Let's see. Turning off video. Turning on video. Then there you should be able to see me, and now everybody else as well. Hey, everybody!
Hey.
So sweet, got it fixed. All right. So I'm doing pretty well myself, sir. Glad you got back in time.
Yeah, just sorry about that. It's the problem with relying on, not driving myself. I can't always trust that Uber's going to be on time, so it kind of screwed me over a little bit. But that's my own fault for not planning it earlier, I suppose.
That's all right. I'm actually quite impressed, Ken, that you are still managing to essentially be able to travel around without owning your own vehicle in the States so far. So I give you guys credit for that.
It's really not that difficult because thancfully the town that I'm in is very much a university town. So
Yes.
it's kind of expected that everything's kind of tied together. Admittedly, what the US's understanding of a university town being tied together is entirely different from a British one.
How so?
Well, the weirdest thing that I think I miss is that in the UK we have like convenience stores on pretty much every corner. So if you need to go get some milk, if you need to go and get some eggs, some sugar, whatever, you can walk somewhere within less than 5 minutes and get those things. It doesn't have to be a big place. It literally just has the essentials. Like if you run out of toothpaste or something, right? You wouldn't go there for your weekly shopping or your monthly shopping. You certainly wouldn't. But you would go there, for maybe if you like fresh bread, you would go to the bakery there, right? And that's what you would do. Here, last night actually, I went to the local store to try and get some milk because we had none left. And I walked in, and the thing about our local convenience store, because it is a college campus, so there is one, is it's 98% booze, 1.5% Pringles, 0.4% alcohol flavored beer and CBD oil, and then only 0.1% is actually anything that's householdy, and they were out of milk. So, because they only usually have like 6 containers for and the crazy thing is it's attached to a block of accommodation that has 16 buildings behind it, all using this one convenience store. So there must be about, I don't know, 5,000 people in those with one convenience store, and they think that 6 gallons of milk would be enough. Madness. And I don't know why I thought they would have anything. But anyway, yeah, so that's been a weird change here, is the fact that it's actually less convenient here than in the UK for when you want to suddenly go out and get something. It's quite difficult here.
Well, and I think that does lend itself to the idea that most people are willing to drive a vehicle to wherever they're trying to go. And so in doing so, unfortunately, what you're witnessing is over quite some time now in the US, we've had a slow demise of all kind of what we consider mom and pop shops. The
Yeah.
more localized, smaller shops for pretty much anything, because once you got your big box stores, they cover kind of every base, but at such a large level that they become regionally the place to go, and they've actually shut down a lot of smaller businesses because they can push lower prices, and people are much more willing to spend the price.
The same thing happened in the UK, but instead of absorbing all these smaller businesses, they just sort of accentuated their purpose. So instead of them just being a small to medium store that has everything, it became small stores for pop in, grab a thing that you need quickly that you don't want to go into a queue for in the main Walmart or whatever, right?
So they were able to adapt and actually still find a way to stay relevant as the bigger stores came in.
Yeah, and they're often like also post offices or printer scanner places, or
okay, so
they have these
multitask
other
and
mini services.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Which
together.
I don't believe most of those businesses here even attempted to do. I think most of them just tried to, and I think this is a challenge with a lot of things that I see, is they didn't want to adapt to what the new paradigm was going to be, so they just continued to like hold on to it as long as they could until eventually they couldn't survive, and we're out. And so
Yep. So yeah, that's why I was a little bit late today. I was just rushing around doing doing shopping. And
you made it at time. You made it, and the show has started on time, and we are good. The only thing it took me was a little moment of restarting my camera, and we are all solid. So no worries, sir. All is good. So
what have you been up to, sir? And I know usually I would go first, but let's hear from you.
No problem. All right, so we'll go ahead and kick things off.
Dysfunctional deviations.
So, what did I want to talk about today? So, this past week has been one of the call it what you will Hallmark corporate holiday type things of Valentine's Day for people to celebrate getting out and about and enjoying their significant others and things like that. I actually got to pseudo partake. I basically hooked up a day to go have dinner that night with a friend of mine. Went out and checked out a place that was new to both of us. That was a Thai place downtown. And so that was actually really nice. Went to a Thai place.
Was it as spicy as expected?
So I did not admittedly go for a spicy dish because this was a place that was posted as a modern Thai. And they caught me because one of the menu items on it, and something that I will quickly look towards if I have any hope that it will be done well, is they had a duck dish that looked phenomenal. Because for me, when duck is done well, it is phenomenal. And unfortunately, though, a lot of places don't. And so I gave it a shot, and I will say I was pleasantly surprised that they did a phenomenal job. And it was kind of a sweeter sauce than it was a hot sauce, because it wasn't a curry or such. My friend who did come with did get a curry, but that was, in my opinion, fairly mild. And it was jokingly because it was asked of me when I had set up the reservation for a Thai place, said, wait, are you trying to keep practicing for what you're going to do with your Hot Ones challenge during Game Fest? And admittedly, I hadn't even thought about that. It was more a reality of when you get confirmation of final things to say that, yeah, let's try to go to dinner somewhere on Valentine's Eve less than a week out. Most places are pretty much booked. And so I was happy to be able to find this place, and it was quite nice. And not nearly as expensive as I would have thought, and it really wasn't crowded. It was great, and so I was happy.
Interestingly, we also went to an Oriental place. We went to the Gourmet Village, which is a Chinese restaurant nearby, and we've been there before, and it's always been very good. And yeah, it was not busy, or not any busier than normal. And I think there must be I think it's because generally speaking, the tradition is on Valentine's Day you go out for like an Italian meal.
That's yes, Italian, French, that kind of thing. And actually, and admittedly, I am very used to going with what is, in my opinion, the traditional thing. And in that, it was like, oh snap, okay. When I asked my friend that was taken, like, where would you like to go? What would you prefer? Basically, Italian was taken off the table. It was saying, nope, I don't want anything heavy or anything like that, this and that. So I kind of had to stop myself and think, oh, all right, well, I guess all the norms and places I had in mind ahead of time are out. And so it actually caused me to do some looking. But one of the things I enjoy doing when that kind of challenge comes up is I like to look at reviews and kind of search an area, give it a proximity, and kind of look for somewhere new. I like checking out different places. I like adding to what might be, whatever that experience is. And so for me, it ended up good challenge, but also good fun in the end. And what I love about hanging out with this friend of mine is that we were just chatting the night away and eventually went over to a whiskey bar afterwards. Neither of us being whiskey aficionados, but grabbing a beer each. And then I like to ask for recommendations from whoever the bartender is. And throughout, they're like, hey, here's what I'm looking for. What would you recommend? And he actually recommended I think I actually did take the picture of it because it was an Irish type whiskey that was called Writer's Tears. And
lovely.
I thought the name of it was hilarious because if nothing else, I almost wanted to acquire it as a gift for some of my author friends.
That's pretty good, yeah.
It was pretty smooth, and it was kind of what I was hoping for, where my friend ended up getting what was the basis of that whiskey? It was... I jokingly described it. I forget the ingredient that was in it that kept being brought up. Is like, no, it tastes like this. That I was saying, so pine needles. It tastes like a tree, or like a...
That's a
cleaner.
Good way to make me disinterested suddenly.
Well, so that was the thing. I am much more of a sweet palate when it comes to any of my drinks. I would much rather drink candy that has alcohol in it. Where
absolutely.
This was much more the robust, and they tend to drink more like IPA beers and things that are a little more hearty that are not my flavor palette. So we have very different tastes. I was able to try some of it, and I didn't hate it in the sense that it was quality whiskey that was smooth and had an all right finish to it. The start was a bit, like I said, pine tree cleaner in my mouth in the sense of flavor, not harshness. So it's not something I would choose. If I were ordering a drink, it would not be on my list of things I go to. But I didn't hate it. It didn't give me that reaction of like, this is terrible. It was just kind of like, okay, that's not what I'm going for. But was nice overall. So actually went out, and it's been a long time since I had, hit like a Valentine's Day thing, which was nice. Good night. Beyond that, I have been trying to prep for things in that I have been cleaning my house a little bit over the weekend. I feel positive, although I do this to myself a lot, where in general I think my house is fairly well put together for the upcoming festivities with Game Fest. I don't feel like I have a massive amount of work to do, and I should be able to pace it out throughout the week so I don't freak out at any one given time. But it always is a combination of getting the upstairs of the house ready for people to come and play board games and just have it cleaned up and everything, and having the basement sorted where all the projects I've been doing over the past several months I get to put back together, clean up, and put away in a corner so there's room for everyone to bring their computers. And I looked through both, and I don't feel like, oh crud. I feel like, okay, I'm okay. This isn't unsurmountable. I hopefully will not be scrambling to still be putting things away as people are showing up, as I have in the past. Because I have done times where I had enough projects out there that I focused on the areas I knew who had signed up and where they would be seating. And so in that case, I cleared all those areas and moved them to other tables first. And then as people started showing up more, I'd keep cleaning their areas. And it's like slow progression until I could sort everyone. But I think I've got myself
very efficient
planned out well this time, so that won't be an issue. That's my hope. We'll see. But doing that, I'm also trying to figure out as I'm putting things together, and I say I'm also starting projects while trying to clean stuff up. Trying to finish up some automation projects I have.
So you're making more mess while you're trying to get rid of the mess is what you're saying.
Absolutely am. And I don't know if that'll be finished before I'm done, so I might have to tuck something away. But that's like upstairs bedroom stuff. But then I'm also trying to figure out in general what I'm going to be doing for menu items. I realize I have a challenge in that, like, for the normal game night, I will sometimes just host with sodas and things like that and all the drinks and therefore mixers and such for people to have, as well as whatever people bring to share. But I like to sometimes, and I'm planning to this time, make a cheese dip that I usually do like a whole combination of ingredients in, make it a little warm and hearty. So if you were to eat nothing but the cheese dip, you likely would survive the weekend. But to do all that, and as I was going, I'm like, yeah, I'll get the cheese dip. It's been a while since I've made that. And I know I need to make some other treats to kind of show off, because the February Game Fest is always the birthday Game Fest as well. And so for those who attend, we usually have between 5 or 6 people that are celebrating birthdays throughout. This one's just about a week before or two most people's birthdays, but it's still the one that leads closest to. So we usually will have a cake or something throughout. Well, it also happens to be that weekend, my friend that I went out with on Friday, their birthday as well, and so it's kind of like, hey, as long as everyone shows up, I plan on making at least if not potentially multiple cakes. And I got the green light from at least my friend whose birthday is over the weekend, were saying like only thing they didn't want was an ice cream cake. So I was like, okay, that's cool because I don't make those.
Yeah, and besides, I've now tried an ice cream cake because that's what Kitten had for her birthday, and I don't see the appeal.
I love ice cream cakes. But ice cream is my favorite dessert.
I've only had a Walmart one, right? So I don't know.
Nah, if you get like a proper either Dairy Queen or Cold Stone Creamery one, so good. But instead, what I'll be making, because this is me actually baking and such, I'm planning to, and I need to reference out to some friends. I think I have a good recipe, but I need to kind of cross-reference with others who've done it. Is a proper good rum cake or two that I plan to make.
That sounds good. If you want any help with that, if you don't know if you're making it before or during, I'm happy to help.
I'll probably make one before because the recipe I have, and rum cakes I've done before, the one that I found that I looked best at because I literally looked up boozy rum cake.
Yeah.
And the one that came up that is titled Boozy Rum Cake Recipe. It has the processing and making time of all of it being about an hour and a half, but it has a resting time of 8 hours. And to me, that is telling me it is a properly styled rum cake because you have to really let it soak throughout to enjoy it all.
Absolutely.
So that is my goal with that one. And it actually has you coat the nuts with rum. So I was just like, this is on my level. I like this.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, well, it's like making candied nuts where you boil it down, but you use rum along with the candying of it and little brown sugar and stuff like that. I'm so excited. But also, as I'm looking at what the overall recipes and things I'm putting together for Game Fest will be this week, because I also want to, spoiler, get together some chicken wings and stuff to do this Hot Ones challenge, as I have acquired 7 sauces now from the Hedonists that I am looking forward to exposing to people. I want to get some nice wings that I can bake up and toss in the sauce, but I also want to be inclusive for guests like yourself, Ken, and pick up maybe some vegan options and such. And so if I can find some of the like cauliflower-based wing type setups that I've seen that they even use on the show, see if we have those available here in town that I can find.
Let me think. To be honest, it's all about the sauce, isn't it? It's not really about the what you're actually using. I mean, even like chips or fries would do.
Which you could, but I figure it's partly the experience of like biting into whatever it is you have. Because I think part of how you experience the hot items, because I've used some of the sauces now in some dishes I've had, but hot sauce will hit you in different ways. If you just place it in your mouth, it'll open up on your palate and hit you in a certain way. Whereas if you're biting into it and gets onto your lips and gums and things like that and all over your mouth, that's a whole nother experience for how you deal with something hot. And so I feel like there's a combination of the two that goes into it. And so I have some thoughts and ideas, but I'm trying to figure that out as to how to best accommodate the experience. And right now, my thought is leaning towards doing whatever that is on Friday night when most people will be there. But I'd realize, because, I mean, I could do it on a show and interview and stuff during the time, but I kind of want to tie it into a gaming thing. And so I'm trying to figure out if I can't come up with either a gaming challenge that someone has to do while eating the wings, like every level or something, and seeing what people score and stuff like that, and how well they're able to survive going through something. I'm trying to come up with something that can be tied in that is from that gaming perspective, where we can eat wings between and work the way up in heat and how that affects us. I see you thinking.
I've got a silly idea. I don't know how well it would work. Okay.
I'm already happy to hear.
I just conceived of it, so I don't know. Okay, so you could do like an Avatar Last Airbender challenge where you maybe get a D4, like a D4 or something, and you randomly get either fire, water, air, or earth, right? And we get a sign for fire. Obviously, you'd have to take a big dollop of hot sauce with something, and then we get assigned something fun for the other ones that maybe aren't quite as crazy, right? So you hope that you don't get fire. For example, maybe the earth could be a whiskey, like a sort of peaty whiskey.
So So if we were to do something like that, I would want to either do it based on a dice type game and have like a setup, because I had a game, and I actually, one of the first reasons I wanted to learn soldering, but I've yet to figure it out because I don't know what actually broke. I can't see water damage, so it might be something else. Is I bought a cheap game from back in the day that I kind of want to rebuild with a Raspberry Pi or something, like one of my Pi Zeros. It's a game that is a simple drinking game. It's a little plastic thing that has multiple spots in it with lights underneath, and a little button where you hit it, and it does a little soundtrack around, and it lands on one. And whichever one it is, it's a shot glass, and the game was called Pick Your Poison, and the shot glasses came all say that, and then you'd have to drink whatever that was. And I remember using it one time that it survived, which was at my pirate-themed Halloween party one year, because we had nothing but types of rum in there. And so we went from very light, and flavored banana and coconut type rums to just a regular white rum, spiced rum, all the way up to Bacardi 151, the heavy proof alcohol, and getting to go around with that. And like I said, it sucks because someone I think spilled on it at one point, but it made it one night, and somewhere during that night it died. I was just so mad because it was a neat concept, but I know I could probably recreate that whole thing with one of these little Pi Zeros I have like sitting on my desk that cost me all of like $5 to buy these things. That I could probably make it and maybe do different modes and things like that if I really want to explain it. Because all I would need is it needs to put out like 6 lights in a randomized pattern. It has to be able to trigger from a button, and it has to be able to articulate a speaker so that it plays whatever sound clip with it. And then, yeah, that's kind of it. That's all it's got to do. And be powered off of batteries.
Hardware,
but the code would be simple.
Software, so if you need a programmer, I could probably do that part.
Yeah, the coding would be super simple on this. So that's something that might be one of my first like legit Raspberry Pi Zero projects, is rebuilding this drinking game I have, which I think would be epic. Especially because I could have it do all kinds of different things. Once you have it programmable, make various games and sound effects for it, different challenges.
Absolutely, yeah.
You could do like the Infinity Gem challenge and have different colored shots for each gem and stuff.
Oh, that
could
be
it actually
fun.
tile. Oh, yeah. Okay, ideas. This is why
There's also Harry Potter themes that you could do, and there's millions.
Right, because you could load up all of the different actual song stuff, and I can actually use them on the Wi-Fi ones and have it so on an app I could actually select which game we're playing and which party it's at. Silly Wayne, why are you doing this? I need to stop now. That has nothing.
The holiday is, of course, Valentine's Day, but I can't think of any really Valentine's-y.
But you could have various Valentine shots, but you could even do it where it just changes out the music being played or a message being played or something like that, so that it's themed towards whatever you're doing. And if I changed out the current lights with RGB LED lights, I could do it so that they could actually change accordingly with whatever mood and stuff it is, so there's a theme of lighting with... Oh, Wayne, stop. This goes back to like when I discussed going to the meadery and how it took me an hour to get out of there because I get so hype about hearing ideas and starting to extend them beyond what they originally were. It's so bad. Wow.
Yeah, we originally were trying to just think of a way to have the eat some hot sauce. And now we're like, what kind of drinking games can we have?
Well, because I could see doing a similar kind of layout when you'd have I could have buckets of the various things. Of the different sauces, and basically do the same thing where it would relate to whichever sauce. And minimally, because I have like 6 distinct flavor sauces, we could just use a 6-sided die and roll for wing, and have to go through and see how far you can take it. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with the right idea of how to make a game of it. Anyhow, so that's what I'm trying to do with the overall menu. I am trying to remember to be somewhat accommodating in the sense that I know that one of the things we usually have here is almost every dish we have is some kind of meat base for food. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a second. Ken doesn't do that. Crud. All right.
Yeah, can I at least, a pain in the butt.
Well, can I at least have some options that might be, a little more accommodating? Because even when I'm looking at making my dip, I'm like, nope, that is not even close. That is meaty as can be, as well as dairy and everything else.
I don't need anything particular. If there's chips about, I'll survive.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. But at the same time, I'm just being aware of my audience. So I'm trying to do that. All right. So doing that, what else has happened? And some of line, in supporting my family and my nieces, I got my first box of Girl Scout cookies in, which is dangerous. Already it took, I was good-ish. Admittedly, like first night when done, I opened up a box of Thin Mints. They're, in my opinion, 2-serving package they have because they come in 2 different sleeves. And true to form, I finished that first sleeve like that night by myself, sitting there watching TV.
Oh,
like,
no.
Okay, Wayne, that was bad. Let's not do that again. So I went and grabbed the rest of the non-open boxes and put them in the freezer.
That's out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, get away, devil. And then went and then I was able to somehow meter out that other sleeve to more than another single sitting. I think I did like 2 and got it finished out. And so now there's no more open Girl Scout cookies, so I'm good for a minute. But did have those. And the weird part is because I ordered them all the same night, but I have 3 nieces who are all doing it. And so I ordered from each one of them equally. But I've only received one box so far. So I'm kind of curious where the others are, if they somehow got hiccuped in the transition, or maybe I actually finally ran into someone that did a porch pirate on me and like stole my other cookies. But I don't know. I'm waiting to see. Like, I need to check my delivery notice to see if the others have shown up or not. So I'm a little like, darn it. Which is probably good, because I really don't need that many cookies in my house. Because I was being frugal, and doing so, frugal, they had a deal where if you wanted to save money on shipping, you had to order at least 5 boxes.
Oh, well, that's only sensible.
So then from my 3 different nieces, that meant I had to order at least, I had to order 15 boxes. And I've only received 5 in so far. So I was like, oh boy.
Oh, Wayne.
That's all right. I may distribute some of them at Game Fest as well. But otherwise, I'm going to have them frozen to meter out through the rest of the year for me.
So on a very similar topic, how's your running going?
So my challenge is I'm still not been able to get myself to truly support the running more than once a week. Especially, and call it excuses, whatever, because I know it would only take me about 20, 30 minutes to get out there and go do a run. But weather being up and down.
The mindset.
And there's little bits, yeah. I could have ran yesterday. I should have ran yesterday, but I was doing so many little projects around the house, I never got out of the house. I say projects, I also was watching some shows, doing some other things back and forth. And so kind of just bouncing around where I was like, I kept kind of looking, saying I should. It's warmer now. Although I looked out the paths and I said, well, my house is dry, no more ice on it, but I don't know if the rest of the paths are clear. And I basically just talked myself out of it. And then I should have done so again this morning, but I spent time working on some 3D print stuff and other things I'll talk about, where I kept myself active, but I really need to carve out a time frame, because the last run I did, the previous week it was snowing and just terrible.
It's a legitimate excuse. You can't really feel bad about that. That's fair.
Yes and no. It was like the week prior we had ran on crunchy snow, where it had snowed a few days prior, and it wasn't enough where it melted and then got icy, so it was actually fairly comfortable to run. This time, it was actively snowing as we went out, was very wet, and my whole time I felt my feet doing the little shuffle of like maintain balance. I had to stay in the footprints of others for the most part, where they had beaten down the trail a little bit. My running companions, both gentlemen from work who is tall, Aussie guy who can run like a rabbit, and my friend as well who runs all the time, is active all the time. So they both basically curtailed their normal pace to keep with me, and they even went so far as to challenge themselves by like running in the heavier snowbanks to keep slowed down to my speed in the beaten down path.
Oh, I see. Right.
Of course, helps boon my how I feel about where I'm at. But it did slow me down significantly, almost a minute a mile slower than I had the previous week, and just could not get comfortable with it. And so, yeah, I was struggling. Yes, Preacher, my operating temperature is greater than 32 degrees, greater than freezing. And so it was something that I ran it, still doing it. I just need to really focus on getting up to more than once a week. Otherwise, I'm not going to be progressing and getting all that much better. But I did feel it, too, because running on slick surfaces, I felt all those extra little stabilizing muscles. And the worst one was towards the end of the miles, right when we were hitting like 4.5 kilometers in the run. So that just like half kilometer to go or so, or maybe at 4 kilometers, I felt my right glute start to just like tighten up. And I realized it was because I was shortening my steps a little bit and hunkering down a little bit to keep stability versus being up heavy and just kind of flailing about. And in doing so, I kept like basically my glutes engaged more of the run, which is good. But when you don't do it all the time, it was a tiring effort in ways I hadn't done. So I was happy that I finished it, that I didn't stop. But man, every time we were going up a slight incline in the snow, it felt like I was going up steps, and I was just not enjoying it. But I did complete it, so I did that. And
well done.
And the wings
that sounds like when you don't want to do something, but you force yourself to do it, that's that's something that should be greatly rewarded in my eyes.
I have a certain
Really
stubbornness that once I commit to something, especially like exercise and running, I'll do it. I may hate it the whole time, but like I really don't want to walk. If I can avoid walking.
That's the mark of a successful person, though. It's somebody who's not doing it out of passion, not doing it because they want to do it, doing it because they stubbornly say, I've decided to, and I'm going to.
I don't know if that's good or healthy or what, but it is something I do. So anyhow, I am still running. And other than that, I think on my non-geeky stuff this week, my other big one was just saying, dude, you're like this week. I'm pretty high.
I know. It's like we're counting days down until I visit. It's crazy.
Yes. So I am also getting ready for all of that and making sure I'm set for your trip out. And so I'm excited. Very excited. All right. I think that's what I've got that isn't geek this week. Ken, what have you been up to?
So obviously it was Valentine's Day on Friday. So I guess we went out to dinner and that was nice. For Valentine's Day, Kitten... kind of for Valentine's Day. I mentioned this last week that I said I would like God of War, and then she said, "Go on, just get it now," and so I did. And so I'll talk more about that in the Geek Cred section. But that was one of the gifts that she got me. She also got me a T-shirt that says, it's a picture of the Star Trek logo overlaid with a dog's face, and underneath it says "#1" in reference to Star Trek Picard.
From Picard, yes.
The dog, yes. So. That was pretty neat. I enjoyed that immensely. And she's also promised to buy me a guitar with her first paycheck that we got on Friday there from her job.
Oh, wow.
Because it's sort of a tradition that she always likes to follow, where she buys me a gift with her first paycheck of a new job.
Oh, that's nice.
So nothing fancy. Just a cheap like nylon thing to keep me going because I've been without a guitar for a couple months now and it's a bit weird. So that's very kind. So I got her a couple things, but the first of all, I got her Imploding Kittens, which is the expansion pack to Exploding Kittens. It's a card game that's quite fun and silly, and we tend to play it on our sort of in our board game nights, drunk board game nights. And she also received the Skyrim cookbook.
Very nice.
So I actually got this for her last Christmas, like 2 years ago on Christmas, 2018 Christmas. And I said to her, I'm sorry, I thought it would have arrived by now. I had another bunch of gifts, but that was one of them. And I said, don't worry, I'm sure it'll be here by January. Then come like August 2019, we were thinking of moving and stuff. And I was like, this isn't coming. I just canceled it. They kept saying, oh, we'll fill your order soon, and they never did. So I just canceled it. And when we were here, I looked at it, and I was like, yep, it's all available. It's not, I will be one day. It's all currently available right now. So I purchased it, and yep, the next day it was on our doorstep, all nicely wrapped and everything. I love that about Amazon.
So yeah, a nice feature.
That, and today we haven't made it yet, but today we're going to be baking a couple of things from it. It's got some really interesting treats. The drink section, half of it is different meads that you make from scratch, which is great. So it's called a quick mead. It's not like something that you ferment for years or months. It's 2 weeks it needs fermented. And it's quite simple to make. It's really just honey, some sugar stuff, mixed with some yeast and some water, and to correct temperatures, put it into a vat or a jar or a jug or something.
Okay.
Contain it correctly. Leave it somewhere warm for 2 weeks. Then you got some mead. That's it. So the first page describes how to make that simple mead, but then there's like 5 different recipes after that for different types of mead. They're all based in the Skyrim world. So for example, I think you have what's it called? Honeybrew meadery mead. You get Briar's mead and a few other ones like that. Some of them are made with like lavender. Some are made with blackcurrants and berries. It's a huge variety. It also says you can leave it for several months to ferment if you want to, but then it'll be less sweet, more alcoholic, but less sweet. So I quite like the idea of a quick mead, something we can just throw together in 2 weeks, and then we'll have some mead. That's pretty cool. And who knows, years time we might have our own meadery like your friends.
That'd be awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing when you go through the process and what you end up with. That should be fun.
Well, we're not making meat just now. That's just one.
Oh
of the
no,
recipes.
but when you do, yeah.
Yeah. Today we're going to be making I can't remember what it's called. One of the breads that was in it, and dessert. So just a couple of easy things. There's some interesting recipes in there that we like. It has what's it called? Sweet rolls. The famous Skyrim sweet roll. What's wrong? Somebody steal your sweet roll, right? That thing the guards always say. So yeah, we've got a recipe for those. So we'll make those as well at some point. So it's a really neat thing, and it's actually by the same author as the World of Warcraft cookbook that we had, which is currently still in Scotland, sadly, which we love. Like we made 4 or 5 different things from it, and every single one turned out fantastic. Like some of the best stuff we've ever cooked. So I'm really excited for us to try this new cookbook and try. The fact that it's geeky makes, and it's full of like beautiful pictures and the lore as to why that was a thing and how it was made, and it's all lore friendly to the universe. So it's nice, you know. It doesn't feel like you're baking; it feels like you're doing a geeky thing as well.
Oh yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
It's neat. So that was Valentine's Day, and that was enjoyable. The rest of the week we didn't really do anything. Last week we did go to the concert I mentioned. I should talk about that. So we got the bus to Ann Arbor, which is about a little bit over an hour away. The weather was crazy. So first of all, we both got an Uber. We went at separate times, so we both got an Uber to the bus station, and that was fine. Got on the bus, left town. Visibility reduced from pretty much fine to I couldn't see the side of the road from the top of the bus.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was crazy. It was all just snow and fog, and cars were flying by on the motorway on the highway. And I was like, my God, this is mental. I wasn't too worried because the bus was massive. So I was like, I'm more concerned for everybody we hit than anything.
Yeah.
But it was other than that, we had a good time. We went to the pub a little bit early, the venue. It was supposed to start at 8. We were there for 7:30. As we arrived, we saw Mickey Avalon, the actual guy, standing outside the venue. And we were like, well, that's okay. That's technically not true. We went to the venue, and we were playing a game of pool beforehand. And he walks in, says, "Hey guys," sort of raises his like beer slightly, looks around really nervously, then like walks out really quickly. I think he was pretty high. I'm guessing on something.
He was doing something to prep for the show.
Yeah, he was clearly very anxious, right? Like he tried to say hi and then he just ran away from us. But really, it should be the opposite, right? He's a celebrity. We're the ones that should be like nervous around him, but he was nervous around everybody else for some reason. Anyway, so we decided to go get some food before the show started. We went and grabbed some fries from a diner nearby, and we came back. And yeah, he was standing outside the venue, just hanging out with a couple of girls, taking some photos. And we went up like, "Hey, can we get a photo?" And he was like, "Yeah, no problem, but you got to hurry. My Uber's just arriving, and this car was driving up." So we got a couple of photos. Well, Kitten got a couple of photos. I didn't really want one. I don't really. I'm not a fan of Mickey Avalon or his style really. But we had a lot of fun there though. Kitten was like starstruck because she's loved this guy since teenage years.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. She really enjoyed it, and got the photo, and straight away he runs off, jumps in his Uber, and is away. And we're like, doesn't the show start in like 2 minutes? And he's hopping in an Uber, going away from the venue. What's going on here? So we went inside, and the first band, duo, I don't know what you would call them, the rappers that were up was
first group,
the Fat Bitches. I'm not calling them that in a derogatory sense or descriptive sense.
Literally what they named themselves?
That's literally what they've named themselves. They're both about 40, 50-year-old, 55, 60 maybe. Very much overweight women. And both very white. I don't know what I was expecting. And anyway, they were super confident. Like they weren't actually half bad. But their style and pretty much the main theme of all their songs is, "Look at us. We're quite obese. Men enjoy having sex with us.
Okay.
Because we're obese." And then she took out some $1 bills from her bra and tried to throw them into the audience. Nobody really picked them up. Until about 2 songs later, this older guy kind of shuffled over and picked them all up and put them back on the stage.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
Oh, it was really funny. It was like, clearly the guy was just trying to be polite, right? And, you know, like, if you're a famous rapper, you'd probably do that with like $100 bills or $50 bills or something to show off, right? It's like, I don't care, right? I've got so much money. But the fact it was $1 bills, and the fact that they were in her bra, like, nobody really wanted to touch them, you know?
I can understand that.
So it was kind of cringy because she was clearly trying to sell her you know, body image as being sexy and everything.
Oh,
it's
boy.
like the crowd kind of generally disagreed, or just didn't really, you know, personally enjoy that. I don't know, genre of body type. I'm not going to read too much into it.
Well, so the challenge, right?
I can say I didn't want to pick up the bills, right? I was like, no thank you.
What's interesting, right, is famously, right, there was the original rap group, the Fat Boys, way back in like the early 90s, late 80s type thing. And they played off the fact that, yes, they are bigger guys, but at the same time, what do I want to say? It's not like they were going in there trying to say, look how hot we are and look at this and accept this or that. They were just playing to, yeah, this is what we are. And they talked about food they liked eating and things like that, and they were generally just having fun. And it was a group everyone could get behind and be like, "Yeah, that's cool. I got you."
Oh, the theme was like these girls were clearly saying like, "Oh, men love to have sex with us because we are fat bitches" or something. And like I think that was like pretty much verbatim a lyric.
Gotcha.
In fact, I think it was about 12 of the different individual lines of several songs sort of melded into one general theme. And that's fine. And I get the image, and I think it's great. I think it's body empowerment in some ways, some fat acceptance stuff. Fine, whatever. I'm glad they feel comfortable in their bodies to stand up in front of the crowd and sing about it. I think that's great. And like I said, they weren't half bad. They weren't. Okay. They were the first band up, so they're supposed to be the sort of newbies.
Right? Yeah, they're the earliest, the least known, trying to get a name out there and such. I will say this. Don't look up. Don't try to find them on a general like search online.
Well, now I'm curious. I'm doing it.
Dude, no. Ooh, yikes. Wrong. Did not want to click that one. At least use safe search, because all that was coming up for me on searches are terms that I did not like the results. I was trying to find so I could at least talk to what I saw them, and I could not find a band or group of such. Instead, I find a lot of commentary videos or things talking about people's opinions of or songs written about gals like that. And so I clicked on a link or two I was not wanting to see. But that's just me.
Lovely. Yeah, in fact, even when I'm looking up like the specifics, I'm not.
I try to look up rap group. And even
I'm
that,
Michigan, I'm looking up Ann Arbor.
It did not give me any love. I'd have to find like that actual venue and specific concert to find it. But regardless of that, continuing the night, was that the only opening band that was there?
Oh, no, that's the problem. So the last bus home was at like 11 or something, and it was like an hour and a half bus, right?
Okay.
So we were getting back at like half midnight.
Yeah.
And you know, we could have gotten an Uber, but that would have been like $150 or something. Like, we're not gonna do that.
Thank you.
So, because Mickey Avalon was supposed to be on at like 7:30, 8, we thought that'll be plenty of time. And so Fat Bitches went on and off, and then
it's usually like a half hour in between bands.
Yeah, I don't remember the order. And in fact, let me give a shout out to this guy because he was actually pretty good, and I don't mind. You know, I don't really like rap or hip hop in general. Like, it's just not my thing, right?
Gotcha.
It's fine. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it, like everybody who likes it is wrong. I just don't like it myself, and I never really have. However, I did experience something that I wasn't expecting, which is this guy called Lil Main, on which is LIL_MAYN.
Okay.
I think that's. Oh no, that's not him. I don't know where it is. Wait. That's similar, but that's not actually him. I'll find him. Anyway, he was there, and I've got him here. We got a photo of him as well with Kitten with him, and he was a really, really quite a good. I don't know if he was a rapper or I don't know, artist. Let's just say.
Okay.
He sung interesting stuff. He clearly wrote all his own songs. He had a good vibe going, like he made an atmosphere when he was when he was performing, which was good. He was quite confident. He actually said a couple times during it, like, "Look, I was really nervous coming up here, but you guys have been great." Kitten was right at the front doing it, like dancing like crazy,
really
like,
into it, right? Showing the energy.
Like, yeah, everybody else was just like holding their drink and maybe bobbing, but like Kitten was in there like proper giving her all. And she was, and clearly this guy and a few of the other artists who saw her dancing were like kind of invigorated by it. They were like, "Wow, the audience is enjoying this."
Oh yeah,
which was great. I found the guy's name. His name is Jared D. Milburn, and it's Illymaine. Sorry, so it's ILLY _MAINE. Illymaine. He's on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, TikTok, apparently, and Instagram. And he was very good. We really enjoyed seeing him, actually. We had a lot of fun listening to his songs. The one thing that was a little irritating to me was he was a little bit Jesus-y. He was a little like, thank you God, thank you God, thank you Jesus.
Yeah, preaching.
But other than that, he was totally chill and relaxed, and it was enjoyable. There was like 3 other.
Oh wow!
Pre-shows, yeah, there was 5 in total that we saw. There might be more afterwards, but we eventually ran out of time. We're like, we gotta go get our bus. It's the last bus.
Ouch.
We need to get home. So we didn't actually get to see Mickey Avalon perform live.
Oh really? Not at all.
Nope.
Oh, that sucks.
So it's actually quite annoying. This is the second time we've done that in the past year. A year ago, we went to go see Foo Fighters, and the same thing happened. We arrived at 2:00 or something in the middle of the day because it was a whole day venue to see Foo Fighters. But
they're the headliners, yeah.
They were the headliners, and we didn't realize it was like a whole day thing. So, like, we would have just shown up at like 7:00 if we knew.
Yep.
But we couldn't leave the dogs alone for like 10 hours. So we missed the Foo Fighters last year. We stayed there until they went on stage, and then we could say, "Yep, technically we've seen them," and left. Right?
Yeah.
This time we couldn't even do that. We had to go rush our bus. So
no,
we didn't see.
That sucks.
But in the end, Kitten got a picture with Mickey Avalon, and
which is awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the main things, right? She met him, for God's sakes.
Yeah, no, that is pretty big.
So that was pretty much most of what I want to talk about. That was cool. That was cool. Yeah, we had a pretty interesting week, and obviously the thing I've got coming up is on Thursday at 6 p.m. It's 6:15. My flight to Denver, where I'll be arriving at 25 to 10. And I'll give you my flight number and stuff later, just to be in case you're interested in keeping an eye on it. And then I'll be there from Thursday evening until pretty much Monday evening. So you're going to be stuck with me for some time.
Not a problem. Like I said, looking forward to it. Awesome, sir. Awesome. Well, unfortunately, you weren't able to actually find the headliner. I've had that problem with not specific. I know the pacing of concerts, and I've only been burned maybe once or twice, where, you know, bigger shows, they tend to start on time, but you usually have several acts ahead of time. I've also been to, I think, 2 shows that did the very small venue off to the side, people that used to be big headliners and have since fallen off, and having to wait like an extra hour before the first group started, and therefore the headliner didn't come on till like 11:30 in the evening.
I find that extremely rude and a breach of terms, a breach of contract, in my opinion, because you're promised a gig at this time.
Yeah,
they should start.
Bothers me. It's because most places I see, they'll say opens at this time, show starts around here, and that I'll usually give them 15 to 20 minutes around the showtime starting, because you never know what's happening behind the scenes and get everything going. But
like somebody might have shown up, somebody's high and throwing up in the toilet, whatever, right?
Well, and respect,
you
right?
On stage soon.
Respect. These are shows that a lot of artists, when they on tour, right, they may be in a city for one day and are traveling off the next. And if you look at their things, and that's often the case where Denver, where I'm at, we get a ton of bands through, but a lot of them, it's mid-tour things. It's as they're traveling, either north to south, like down to Albuquerque, something like that, or up from, and then before they head east-west kind of thing. So they'll come, and unless they have 2 or 3 shows, they're likely going to be there for a day or a night, especially during the week shows. Like the next show I'm going to is Cybertronic Spree again. The Transformers themed band is the next one I have tickets for. They're actually coming to Denver. I've seen them at twice before, but always at a convention that they've been members of. So I've never been to just their show. Kind of curious to see what'll happen. Because they're very accessible at con. Like they're right there and it's easy to see them. But here it'll be a show, so who knows. But I realize they're coming on a Tuesday, which means they're probably traveling somewhere else Wednesday and then performing again Thursday and Friday. stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, no, I hear you there. Anyhow, oh no, exciting still. And gosh, I realize more and more how much I love concerts and such. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity again and better experiences in the future when you know it's coming.
The thing is, dude, I'm not big on gigs. That one was quite good because it was very chill. There was like 40 people there or something,
nice.
And
wow.
that was fine. We had our space. I wasn't too worried because security. Like, it was a shady part of town. Like, I thought Ann Arbor's a really nice town. Like, it's a really nice place. But man, this is like literally a backdoor kind of joint. It was like you needed to go in through some back street to get in.
Gotcha.
So it was a little shady. But once we got inside, it was quite comfortable and quite secure, and it was no problem. So I enjoyed that. But I don't like standing in a huge crowd and stuck between. Like, I want to sit down. I'm 20. So I don't know how old I am. I'm like 28 or something, and that's old enough for me to want to just sit down and know what I like. I'm not gonna go stand if I can help it. I don't want to stand for 4 hours and wait on some pompous a-hole who thinks that they can just wait for hours because they're better than us. Screw that. I'm not going to give you my money if you're going to act like that. I will. If there's going to be seating available, if it's going to be comfortable, reasonably priced, and a relaxed, chilled environment, I'm all for that. Like an acoustic session. That's the kind of stuff that I'm into nowadays.
Gotcha.
That's fine by me.
Wow, this is the moment where Ken is showing like he's older than me. Because I don't mind going to the bigger concert venues and standing amongst the crowds. I don't want mosh pits, and I don't want to be banged around. But I'm okay standing up for an audience or for a group when they're playing. I want enough space and go to a venue that does have seating, such that when it's between sets or it's a slower song, it is totally still I can chill, sit down, and enjoy that. But I still do like that concert attitude of like standing up and just being like really grooving into whatever the song is. So I've got that like mixed.
I actually kind of like mosh pits. Just to be contrary. Well, that's the thing. If you're a mosh pit, if you're going to go see Blink-182 and there's a mosh pit, I'm like, okay, don't do that.
As I know.
Like, but if you're going to go see, I don't know, like Rammstein, and there's a mosh pit, yeah, I want to jump in there. That's fun.
See,
that's the purpose of Rammstein.
I think my challenge is because I've never experienced them in a good way. I've always been stuck on the fringe. I feel like my energy that I get from it is a little too protective and on the edge of like, this is a fight. And
that is why I don't go in with other people. I like to go in solo because if I'm with somebody else, I worry about them and I want to look after them. And that's not what you should be doing. You should be going in to have fun.
And I'm usually with a group that usually is a mixed group with guys and gals and things like that. And so I'm usually concerned because in those, because I'm totally cool with being towards the very front of a venue and looking right up at the artist, depending on who it is. And so I've been many times at the cage or at the fence at the line, holding the fence line, as the crowd is kind of surging behind me a bit. And I'm okay with that. But usually in those cases, still I'll have, if there's gals in the group, there'll usually be one in front of me that I'm kind of creating a shelter around.
Yep.
And I've done that several times, right, where you're just pushing back on the thing to make sure they don't get hit.
It's fine, and it's respectful, and if they want that help, then that's great. But like, there's also the point of, if I'm there to partake in a mosh pit, I don't want to be doing that, and that's not the time.
And that makes sense, and that's why it's interesting because I've never had that desire to hit the mosh pit. I'm just like, whoa. Anyhow,
like I said, depends on the music that's playing. Like if it is some acoustic session, you start moshing, it's just not the time. It's not that you want to get damaged or hurt anybody else. It's nothing about that. It's about feeling just an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it's sharing that energy.
All you're doing is jumping against people. Really.
Yeah, it's just sharing that energy. Like I said, it's just not something I've wanted to be a part of. I'm always on the outside of it. Like, I'll see it and be like, all right, that's fine. I don't want in on that. And so
that's fine. That's totally
understandable. It is interesting to know different people's energy at concerts because I've never been the mosher. Anyhow. All right, well, we are going to come up to a break. And actually, let's go ahead and take the break first, and then we will come back with our geek cred, since we are getting close to that point anyways. And this will give all of you people an opportunity, if you'd like to share your geek cred for the week, by emailing in at showx@vtwproductions.com. That way we can hear what you've been doing this last week that's been geeky. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and jump into this break with a song. Not a long one. We'll be gone for about just under 3 minutes. This one is an OC remix because we love them, but it's Wild Arms, so on the game Wild Arms, and the song, in a Valentine's-y mood type thing, is To Be Loved Is to Love by Melody. So check this out as we take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
Send in your emails to showx@vtwproductions.com. You're listening to Show X on btwproductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Quick little break there. It's funny because Ken and I are both like, I don't actually think I need thee to break, but it's good to stop talking for a moment.
It was fine. It was. I've got Factorio open in the background, so I can just hop over there and be like, "Ooh, what needs automating? I'm sure I can add another line of copper plates here."
There you go. Continuing the project as you work. All right. So with that, we'll switch over to a little bit of.
I'm a geek. Are you a geek? Geek cred, level up!
To come off of our non-geek discussion, I'll go ahead and continue the trend and keep going with what I've been up to as the lead this time. So I was going to talk 2 shows real quick, the ones that I've been following primarily. I just finished binging season 3 of Sabrina.
Nice!
I always want to say the Teenage Witch because it's not that version of it.
it's season 3 already. That's crazy.
They had just come out with season 3 like a couple weeks ago. Because my friend who actually got me watching it had mentioned at one point that she was going to be binging it and had been watching for some time. I was like, all right, I'll check it out. Kind of started watching, and I was like, as much as there are things about the show that I wish the writers took a little more time with and weren't being as cheap about, overall, I've quite enjoyed it. And I like the world they present and the way they're showing magic and such. I just feel like my general synopsis of the series is that everything can't be solved without Sabrina's insight or help, or somehow she has to solve everything. And she never suffers consequences for her actions. Not truly. Like, there's little teasy ones that kind of like, oh no, she almost frowned there because it was a little rough. But it's never truly out or something where she really suffers for. And even then, I like every once in a while she'll get told a little bit, but my biggest challenge is that a lot of the decisions and things she's a part of would be considered earth-shattering, could change the very reality that humanity on the planet exists in. And she gets to so often just teenage out of it and wah. And nope, I don't care. I'm going to go do this because I want this. And too often, nobody yells at her for it or like straight up smacks her across the face the many times that she probably needs it throughout the series. And so
wow,
it struggles. And admittedly, my friend was very big about saying, yes, I mostly hate Sabrina, but I like a lot of the other characters and what's going on in it. And I can agree because I am very empathetic and like watching the story for Hilda, her aunt, who is my...
Is she the one who got killed and then brought back like 3 million times?
Yes. And I realized that she, to me, is probably my favorite character in the series.
Interesting. I had no investment in her because I kept seeing her as just this random side character.
Which she is treated that way often, but at some points she gets little bits of like her own story comes forward. And I think it's mostly because to me she is the most pure and honest character in the entire thing. She doesn't have any ill motivations. She is very straightforward and open book about how she is and how she works in the world. She's not a complete... and Babs, actually, I do like the cousin a lot as well, compared to many in the cast. I always forget his name, but I like him significantly more than the majority of the gals.
I vaguely recall him being interesting. I can't remember why.
I think they explore more with his character around doing little side things. My challenge is just there's so many things that could have been solved without, or like consequences that should have naturally progressed from what they showed had happened. And they do several things in there that I find are always cheap writing in general, where they will come up with a new concept, technique, or ability, and they use it in that moment and then kind of just let it go anytime else. And I think the one that my friend and I both specifically were like, eek, about was, and this isn't a major one, but it's one we both focused on, is Salem. Her familiar, the cat in it, almost doesn't exist. They show Salem out initially when introduced as being this badass familiar, and the potential to be just violent and crazy and over the top with so many things to be done, and then just never exists, and at most is there for scenes to hiss at someone to say there's a little bit of distrust, or in the other side used as a way for Sabrina to have an inner dialogue, but with a cat that doesn't talk back, but she can understand what he's saying, and therefore she's
That
able
should
to
talk back because that's
in
the
the
best thing about Sabrina was Salem.
In Teenage Witch, Salem had such personality and added so much. And while this is a very dark thing, and I appreciate that, part of me would have liked it. I will at least give them credit that they were consistent with their use of familiars, in that anyone who had a familiar they talked to, they could understand and talk to that no one else could. Because also Lilith has her Raven that she, throughout parts, she's talking to and kind of also does the same thing. But the show uses it as a way for that character to express themselves without having to talk meaningfully to any other character, and therefore can express some inner dialogue. And so I give them what they did with that, but it was just like, come on, there could have been more to it.
I would have thoroughly more enjoyed it if Salem was comedy relief, while also having the potential to have insight or wisdom, but also being that flawed character that he used to be.
Yeah,
he used to be
he was their version of Bender.
Prisoner.
He was their Bender.
Yeah, he was, right? But he was also like a prisoner. He was he was a dangerous convict, and it was kind of sort of hinted at that if he ever got released, he would terrorize
all
the
of
world
these crazy things. And so, I do wish they had done more with Salem. There's other things in there. It's just, there's too many little convenient things. But as a whole, I enjoyed the series, primarily because of how dark they went with it and how a lot of the subjects are legit, like bloody, gory, and this is not a good thing. I appreciated that. I appreciated some of their general look at witchcraft, the way they're presenting it. So I enjoyed it still. I will look forward to the next season. It did get me to at least spend one episode, and we'll see if I go further. I actually may, into watching Riverdale. Since they mention it and they coexist, although they are very different things. And mostly because they had a cameo of a character at one point come in. I don't believe a main character, just like a side one from whatever the Serpent's gang is or such in Riverdale, comes into... Yeah, exactly. I know I've seen the imagery out there and people wearing costumes of, but I've never seen it. But comes into a scene, and I've heard them talk about having to go to Riverdale. And at one point, like, Sabrina's group of friends says, "Oh, Riverdale's scary," or whatever, creepy. There's weird stuff over there. And I'm thinking, really? Coming from this group? What?
Right.
And so I'm now curious as to what's going on in Riverdale and kind of want to see it. And right now, the first episode of that just leads you to teenagey. I know it's based on the Archie comics back in the day, but it's just like very teenagey stuff, although I'm not against where they've introduced it. I kind of like the characters they've introduced so far. So we'll see. Not much more to talk about other than I have enjoyed it. I'll watch more when it comes out. I've actually had some pretty in-depth discussions about it with my friend who got me into it, and so I enjoy that aspect. Have also watched I believe the latest episode of Picard, episode 4. I think that was the latest. I feel like I might have missed somewhere in the middle, but I think that was the latest one. And still enjoying that one.
What? Sorry, Guard.
Picard, sorry.
Oh, Picard, sorry.
Star Trek. And so I am enjoying that still with the latest episode. I
haven't watched any more than the first two.
Okay, so I think I've just finished the fourth one. I'm still enjoying it, still invested, still curious to see what will come up next. I like that they are continuing to show little hints of history and where things started, and they've introduced other characters. They had one badass scene in this one of a quick like, whoop, oh, that just happened. All right, so that's this character. I am going to be curious to see if they maintain that, if the character's ability to do cool stuff is used further, or if that was, again, kind of a singular moment for a scene. And so we'll see. I really am always curious about how much they keep to what's going on. And this is fact, as I'm reviewing, just finished the beta reading for John's book, his third book in a series for the Sword of Dragons. It's reminding me about certain things I like from different storytellers. And it's being able to really say, like, I want people to earn whatever it is they present. And so something I'm recommending in general, because I don't know how authors or any writers do it, but it's almost like it makes sense to me to create a character sheet for each of your main characters that go through that as you progress a story, you update with new abilities, new skills, new challenges, things like that, so that whenever you write a scene, you can go back and reference it to say, what in their kit would they probably use to solve this challenge, right? Now that I've shown they have this ability, because one of my biggest problems I had, and this is like one of my whole screaming things about the inconsistencies in the Star Wars series, especially with the addition of the prequels and such, how they would introduce a theme or a ability once, and then you'll never see it or hear it again in the entire rest of the series of the live action.
Irritating, isn't it?
It's just like, but you can do this. Why didn't you just solve that problem through this? And if that means that...
Did you ever watch Stargate?
Oh, yeah.
So do you remember when they introduced the Zat gun in Stargate SG-1?
Ooh, and it was... Slightly. I'm not... The name is familiar, but I'm trying to remember what it did.
So on normal military personnel went around with P-90s, which is a real-world rifle-type gun. But eventually they discovered this alien device called a Zat gun. And how they originally introduced it was if you shot somebody once, they were stunned. Kind of like a phaser. Yep. If you shot them, I think, twice more, they would literally evaporate and disappear.
The third time would like legit disintegrate someone.
But it would also disintegrate pretty much items and pretty much everything. Yeah. So it was like the super... And for like 3 episodes, they were just like, oh, there's a boulder in the way. Well, let's just freaking Zat gun it. And they just kept doing this again and again. And then eventually they just stopped. They never referenced it again. Turns out it was retconned because they realized that there's no
too powerful.
They can come into.
Yep.
Yeah, that cannot be solved with the Zat gun just zapping it into nothingness.
Yep, that's right. Well, and that's the problem, right? At least if you're going to deal with it, show where that technology got destroyed or it had a limited use. Like, we didn't realize this thing was only charged this way, and after doing so with that core power source, it disintegrated itself.
Well, Star Trek was quite good for that a couple times. Like, they said, in fact, I think it was in TNG, that they realized that traveling at warp speed 9 point something or other actually did irreversible damage to the universe itself. It was like a super dangerous thing to do. And they all were like, oh, shoot, let's never use it again. And
let's cap it at basically warp 9, which is kind of what we've always seen.
Which is super interesting, and I like that because it was it gave, here's a new technology, and we've safely moved away from it.
Yep.
I like that.
And I think that's appropriate, right? And so I'm okay with that. It's funny because my brother's bringing up things about, let's see, was it sarcophagus? I don't know what that is. I'm forgetting the specific, like, these names of what devices they were. So I'm trying to remember now. So it's funny. I searched for it, and all I got was sarcophagus. It's like, no! I want specifically this.
I don't know. Let's talk about... What's that reference to? The sarcophagus in Stargate.
Unless that is the actual sarcophagus. My brother just typed it wrong.
Well. That it was basically
it could remake anybody. Yeah, it could regenerate anybody. Right?
Yeah, it was just this magic thing that would restore you to full health even if you're dead, pretty much.
And so, well, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of things where you find out open items too strong. And they kind of did that, and Babs is saying, like, yes, it makes you evil if you use it too much. So it's like, okay, and maybe that helps talk about the oh gosh, it's been so long since I've talked Stargate. The names of everyone. Right. Woo! I'm not going to even try. But yeah, so
Daniel, who else? I remember Daniel because I love
Well, Ra's al Ghul, like not Ra's al Ghul, that's Batman. Shoot, what were they named?
Goa'uld.
The Goa'uld, right?
The Goa'uld.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I always loved saying their name, the Goa'uld.
Goa'uld. But it is a challenge when you do run into these things of different technology being shown. It's funny that John's actually not on because he's the person I would normally have these kind of fights with about whether technology was worthwhile or not, or how it affected plot. But I would really recommend to anybody who writes to have like a character sheet that continue so that you don't run into plot holes and stuff like that. Or because even then, if you know that a character suddenly has kind of an earth-breaking ability, you can now write to it and at least do it in such a way that it is in canon and can avoid without having readers go, but wait, couldn't he just do this?
If you want to write fantasy or sci-fi, it is inherent that you will have some parts of it that are going to be overpowered because magic or magic technology comes with the problems of it solves a lot of issues, right?
Yep.
So you need to start thinking in that spectrum.
Well, and that's been one of the major challenges with Sabrina is that because it's a magic world, right? Which caused them to do so many things, and they've had a couple items that were just magic. In a way, is kind of answering it, which is, again, the cheap answer. But, well, it can be, right? Unless you can explain rules behind it and where it matters. The challenge with Sabrina, and this is one of the challenges with any character that is done in such a way, she gains mass amounts of power without ever earning it. And so she just suddenly has it because
of armor.
lineage. Yeah, right? And I'm just like, man, but that's just a cheap answer where suddenly you learn to do this, suddenly that. Like, I kind of like in Sabrina how they have all this magic that they do and they all talk, but it's weird to me how Sabrina, who is 16 throughout the whole series, all three seasons of it, she like knows these complex spells, and when they start talking about having to cast a spell, everyone just suddenly knows all the words, and you never have anyone being like, hey, make sure you give me a moment that we can work up on what we have to say and to practice this before we do it. It's just like anytime they have to do a group spell, everybody just knows it. And then they just do it in sequence. And there's times where they'll do it where one person starts, the next person picks up, the next person picks up, as though they've rehearsed it 100 times. I'm kind of like, man, that's just convenient. And I hate when plot things are done conveniently, because that's what me is the opinion or the definition of a convenient plot device, right?
Even if they just said something along the lines of, we innately feel the magic flow through us, and as we are witches, this is what happens when one person starts the spell. They effectively share it with everybody else.
There's a lot of ways. Yep, there's a lot of ways that you can do it that make it like, okay, I can accept that is a rule of this universe. And it's a challenge to me anytime any storytelling does that. And so that's like a criticism I'll have of any storyteller. It's something that I am focusing on whenever I see it as a weakness in what John has written, like any little sequence where I'm like, I don't think you earned this. I think as a reader, I want to be brought along on this journey and learn it as well, things like that. So yeah, there's so many little things. And thank you. The terms like Mary Sue and stuff like that I'm starting to hear more of and realize how they apply.
Yeah, that's a big issue as well. I think the technique that annoys me most is quite a lot of fantasy or any kind of progressive show where the main character gains in power or ability is how at the very beginning they always succeed by Deus Ex Machina. Like they don't seem to ever actually earn it at the beginning.
Yep.
Like some crazy bad guy that has killed 300 other villagers, beats down your door, comes in with his black axe, swings it down, but just then, like there's your mother's pot was above your head, and it bounces off and hits him in the head, and you run away. It's like, come on, like,
right?
You could have at least said that, when he learned hunting from his father and managed to, sneak away or like just anything would be better than the Deus Ex Machina at the very beginning, because then. Why have they earned it? Why have they earned surviving some supremely evil entity, the super powerful thing, like should not be as easy as something that the random chance can prevent.
Yes.
And that always irritates me.
Well, and those are the challenges, and sometimes you miss it in other books because I started having some more in-depth discussion about some of the things like in the Harry Potter universe where they did that, certain spells and abilities that would have been so much more convenient. And I will give a massive shout out back because one of the things that reminded me of it was the YouTube series that I talked about in the past, where the guy basically bounces. It's from Screen, or is it Screen Rant, or which one? But he talks back and forth to himself. It's the one where it's pitch ideas or pitch meeting YouTube series. Love it. Go check it out because basically it's a whole series where the guy plays both parts as a producer of a series and the writer, or any movie and stuff like that. And he specifically pitches in such a way. It's him doing a pitch to the producers of it. And
I've seen this.
Yes, and him basically pointing out every plot hole that series of movie had. And I really appreciate the way they do it because even with movies I've loved, I can appreciate when they point out something like, ooh, I never thought about that. Yeah, that was kind of cheap. They probably should have done that better. And other ones where I truly disliked and he points out stuff and I'm like, that's exactly why I hated that. And so I do recommend, I think it's Screen Rant, it might be the series, but regardless, Pitch Meeting. It is so good. So yeah, those are some of the ones I've captured or thought of that I was just like, man. Let's see. Excuse me. So, regardless of all that, like I said, Picard, enjoying that still. Other geek stuff. I think I finally got my actual gaming headset to start to behave. My Logitech G933s that I have, my wireless surround sound gaming headset, was running into a lot of issues, and it still was happening recently, where all of a sudden they would just reboot when plugged in, like as they were powering. If I wore them while still being plugged in, it would just reboot itself and have to go through this whole power cycle thing and reconnect to the wireless. Really annoying when gaming or talking to somewhere. It just goes silent and then you go do-do-do-do as it reboots. seems like it was a conflict with it and any other things, because I also have a Logitech camera and what was my other device? The mouse that I have, that the software is trying to manage all of them, because at least the headset and mouse both have like lighting profiles, things like that. I'd found at one point if I turned off any lighting profiles on the headset, it made it better. But then I just recently went from their old gaming software to this new Logitech G Hub software. It's like their upgraded whatever.
Right.
And I think that might have actually solved it. I hope so, because it was super annoying to have that drop on me. Other things I did recently is I upgraded my FreeNAS installation. So my server in the basement has been upgraded, where it came up with this really cool new interface on it. Hey, why don't I have your face on this one now? Let's see. I'm going to try to find. Interesting. I went to sharing my desktop, but for some reason your face didn't come on, and it makes me unhappy.
I'm okay with not having a face for a while.
I don't know what it did there. Anyhow, but in it, no, that's me. The software just has a much prettier interface as a whole. Is the best way I would say it. And so I'm interested in just kind of going. You can kind of see my server. I have it breaking up into a few things, like my photos drive. That's essentially 10 terabytes of storage, I think. A media drive that's somewhere around 8, and stuff like that. And I'm trying to build on and see if I can get it working before Game Fest here, a Steam cache drive for anyone who is downloading and stuff like that. But they came up with a whole new interface, and I had to do a few things where I actually had to clear out all my cache, because most of the interface comes through the actual web interface of it, the website. And so all my things that were running still had like the old interface, and it was messing up what it could do. But it's funny, if you did see on there, I'm running, basically mine is a E5 2620 Xeon dual server with that 2 gigs. So it's got 24 threads of space, and I'm using on general 0% of it. I need to find more things to stress the server besides Plex and such. And so I keep looking for things I can add to it, like running a Steam cache.
If you'd like, I could throw an evolutionary algorithm or two at it.
Well, if it was actually helping something you were doing, I wouldn't mind wasting some cycles. I don't want to just do like Bitcoin mining or something like that. Yeah, right. You get whole server
farms.
I'm
an SSH away from high power computing anywhere in the world now. It's just
yeah, so
no
you're
problem.
fine. No, it's kind of like, because they have a jail in there just for like a Minecraft server if we're ever hosting one or something like that, and things like that. Let alone, like I said, I could actually host probably my own file server for anything, as we're letting the old audio archives die, and not going to pay the $500 for it hosted on a server online. I have a server. I could probably host that here if I needed to, if people still want access to the old MP3s and such. And so it's like I need to utilize the hardware that I have further. And I also laugh because I have, and you'll see it, Ken, in the server rec, I have a whole nother JBOD setup of, I think, 16 drives I can hold that's empty. That's like, if ever anyone wants to donate large format hard drives to the VTW cause, let me know. I would really love to just start stacking 10 terabyte drives in there and fill that out. Hey, I have a whole theory. And actually,
what purpose?
Well, so for one, I was talking about actually hosting for my family remote access. And so that, like, my parents, especially, and this happened to where my mom, for her business and stuff, my parents are running off of just laptops, and they're mobile. So they don't have like a solid desktop with a large setup. They could probably build a NAS if they wanted to in their own setup. And I actually have another friend who's running this where they have an external hard drive that failed. And so I mentioned that, yes, you could continue. And it's actually like I retrieved recently in this process the old Western Digital, I believe it was, hard drive from Octail and Hordak. I have reacquired all the files. I was able to recover them. But it's one of those things where the problem with these external hard drives is they die constantly, or they get corrupted very easily from being plugged and unplugged. They lose partitions. Yeah. And the companies out there know this, and so they have software that'll fix it for you, but ain't cheap, right?
Yeah.
And so I much recommend instead running some kind of RAID with internal backup or basically recoverability in it, so that you can both have larger space and just some idea that if one drive fails, you can at least recover it much easier. And so one of the ideas is I have enough potential storage on my NAS that there's no reason I couldn't host storage for others in my family and let my parents, like my mom, host her photos, videos, and things like that here and be able to access it remotely whenever she wants. And that way she has some other format versus just their own local drive and such. And I actually have a further thought of that because my older brother, Babs, has a similar setup in his garage with a whole rack and stuff like that, that I was hoping to start sharing, like have each of us back each other up as having offsite backup, so that if either one of our arrays died, you'd have all the data still stored elsewhere for anything you need that level of storage for, instead of having to pay for other backup services. I have the equipment. I don't see why I couldn't just have that. I just need more hard drives. And so that's part of my theory, is I could actually set up, and I could easily set up encrypted VPN, capable storage for yourself or others that I know, where I could segment out, like, how much storage do you need, right? Oh, you need a terabyte online somewhere that you can get to? There you go. And so that's some of the things I'm trying to look at as to how I could better utilize a legitimate server that I have, because mine's running a dual Xeon Super Micro board and such, which is a legitimate server with 10 gig on access, 10 gig E ports and stuff like that. So those are some of my thoughts on how I could better utilize it as I'm working with and playing with FreeNAS and other things like that.
So we've been running into some interesting issues regarding this kind of thing at work, actually, because basically what we're trying to do is make use of this. We've got this data set that we need to work with, which is about 50 terabytes large. And the difficulty is you need to both read and write to it. So often you need to have two separate instances of it. So you'll have 2 times 50 terabyte.
Oh, ouch.
That can't even be stored in RAM, right? Like, that's got to be like constantly read from and to memory.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the problem is we've been trying to use high-powered computing for this. So we've got the university's, computing department has a massive, extremely ridiculously powerful set of servers that we can use and we have access to somewhat. Oddly enough, they're not too keen on the concept of us hogging 100 terabytes and
sounds like
instances of that.
Sounds like my
and
group
then
at
also
work.
trying to use all the RAM for that, right? I mean,
Yep.
And then the processing on top. Like, you actually want to do stuff with the data, right? You don't just want it stored there. So we've got it working, but we needed to make it a group effort. Basically, the way that often the many high-powered computing centers work is that you have this sort of imagine just all these servers and racks that are super powerful, and they're all kind of distributed. So when you ask for a job to be done, there'll be some queue management system that it has
usually they either
they
usually either spin up a container or something that uses some piece of the overall processing available to do that job and schedule it out as part of it.
It will schedule, and if one job takes too long, it'll kill that job and let others take over and stuff. And that's part of the problem, right? If we try to put all this up in one big job, it'd be like, no, and just shut it down, right? So we've had to use sort of since we are a team and we all have our individual logins, we're not acting as
You're
a single
manually distributing the workload across the server.
Yep, that's the only way. No, that's the thing. It not only is it kind of dirty, and it works, but it is actually the way we're supposed to do it. Each user account is only allowed a certain amount.
Yeah.
So
you just are maximizing the accounts you have available.
Yep. Exactly. So that's been kind of a fun thing. I only just started using the high power computing stuff this week for the first time ever. And it's fun, but man, it's a pain in the butt. Because there are all these sort of floating environments, you don't really know what you're connecting to and what's changed.
You have to program in a different way where you're looking at types of resources versus physical resources and things like that. Yeah, very different type of computing.
You're not connected to a computer, you're connected to an instance, right? Yes. An idea.
Yep.
And
it is the basis
and then
of cloud.
Is, I connect to it and I'm like, is my job done? It's it's halfway through it. I'm like, okay, can I see? It's I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, load R, load this programming language, load these 3 modules. Okay, now can I see? It's oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Can you do it with Grafana or anything, or any of those where you can get in there and build Windows and instances to kind of manage your load once you put in a instance ID, essentially the ID of what's being sent back and forth to the actual resources? Oh gosh, this is too close to work. Need to stop.
Yeah. No, I don't believe you can GUI in. I think it's generally speaking all SSH and SFTP.
So I'd be curious if they have running on your server anything of Kibana, Grafana, or any of those kind of instance tools to monitor things. You can probably build your own window in graphically that just monitors whenever those resources are being used, those job IDs and such. That's true. That. Because if you know what server it's coming from and to, you can use. Sorry, This is that. Sorry, people with the geek level.
All the servers. It's kind of abstracted for us because we're just users of the system, not admins.
True, but you could probably set it up so that when you submit a task, you keep track of what that job ID is, and then report back to your Grafana or whatever your instance is that you're watching. So it's only relative to that submitted ID. Like you might have to have some manual piece to it, but at least that way, while things are running, you could keep track, and you could overall do a forensic on it over time to see how long your jobs are doing and if all of them did work.
Neat. Yeah, but dude, you'd lose your head over this the power in this thing.
You'd be surprised, man. I get to be around a lot of powerful stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, that's a good point. I don't know which would be bigger, big companies or whether it be big university.
I'll put it this way: well, not directly accessible by me. I have seen the high computing farms in some of the national laboratories that the government hosts, where they do like the crazy on nuclear weather modeling, all kinds of different things that are scientific.
That's pretty big
at a government level.
Yeah. And
usually their farms are bigger than any one school or multiple schools can handle, let alone even large companies. You know, where we have our own instances of things that would be relative to entire nodes of what Amazon Web Services provides.
Yeah. Like we had we were looking at some papers the other day about from Google that were saying, oh, we found this algorithm performs better than all the others, and we tested this on, and then they said, like, we tested our algorithm on something that no other company or organization or entity in the world could ever actually test.
Yep.
So it's not even replicable whatsoever. And I'm like, that's not science.
That's just in the realm of theory, right? And just saying, like,
that's just like, your algorithm looks nice, but does it work on my laptop? Right?
That's like cloud. That's cloud flexing, right? It's like
it's just not useful for the rest of the research community. Yep. So why are you making papers on it?
Again, this is why when I went to the supercomputing conference here in Denver, it was eye-opening to me because I've seen big resources, but everything there was at that level. When they were talking about, look, we are actually doing processes that take advantage of AMD's new 64-core, EPYC processor, and those situations where, yes, this server itself is running 2 terabytes of memory, but the cluster has some 8,000 threads available and, has almost a petabyte of memory available. And you're like, huh? Wait, what? Right? That's dumb.
Was that a P? Did you put a P, not a
right?
P?
Yeah. Like, I'm excited because I'm now running 64 gigs of memory in my personal computer for no good reason. Let alone these people that are running, it's dumb. It's watching like Linus Tech Tips recently when they built their 2 terabytes of RAM server setup that they did recently to take advantage of the new EPYC processors. And so it's just silly stuff out there.
Yeah.
Anyhow. No, that's
funny you
awesome.
mentioned, actually. I actually just looked through Amazon the other day and selected a laptop that I would buy if I had the money. No, not even something crazy. I think it was like $500, but you can get some pretty powerful computers for that price these days. Let me see them pull up because it was quite interesting.
I say that's actually not bad. As you're looking
it was for a laptop as well. It was really, really impressive. Sorry, I need to remember how to use. Amazon US is very slightly different than the UK. So like try to find like my lists, for example. Gotcha. Slightly more difficult. There it is. Okay, so I'll put the link in the chat as well as I'll put it in. I'll send it to you. Well, I'll just put it in the chat and you can see it there.
Yep.
So it's $640.
That's cheap for a laptop.
That's a good price for a laptop. And I had some certain requirements. It's not a big screen because I don't really care about big screens.
Yeah, well, and actually, the ATA 15 is kind of like your everyday runner unless you're doing graphics editing and stuff, which is the only time I say a 17 is really needed.
Mm-hmm. So this is it's got GTX 1050, so nothing crazy, but it's got 16 gig of RAM, a 250 gig SSD. Comes with Windows 10. I wish I could turn that off personally and just install whatever I want. Comes with an i5 with 2.4 gigahertz. Nothing super impressive, but $640. I think it's pretty good for that. That's a solid computer.
Yeah, that's very solid.
So I probably wouldn't get that myself because that's actually technically worse than my computer. But the problem is my computer is actually dying just now, and I'll get into that. I'll get into that in my credit.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will finish up mine real quick. So because I have those 64 gigs of memory, and because I've been doing stuff for a while, I admit I was teasing recently. I don't know what got me over to it. It's something I watched where I was like, oh, is I recently I jumped back onto Skyrim
I saw that you were doing that again and again.
I was playing with modding again because why? I mean, I played the whole first game through years and years and decade ago, but it was kind of like mods have improved, and I now have it's all with the special edition one, it's all 64-bit enhanced. It'll use whatever memory's available. I now have 64 gigs of memory available. Let me maybe go back and
break even faster.
Let me go revisit. And so I will admit, I went in one time, I was a bit aggressive because they came out with a new type of mod manager than what they had originally had on Nexus Mod Manager, or Mods, the site I'd always gone back to, called Vortex, which is a third-party app that is designed around it. And I admittedly was like, maybe it's easy button mode now? It's not. Where I just grabbed a list of some 50, I think, 3 mods or something like that, and said, download them all, install all, go. And no. It would like drop instantly because I did not take the time to make sure that I deconflicted any mods that had specific load order or when you have to deploy them to order and stuff like that.
Skyrim's coming into a new problem now in that it's not a new game. So a lot of those mods that you're probably wanting to load might not have been touched in 6 years.
I think the oldest one I grabbed was 2016 because I went from like the top list, the top 100 list or whatever the top current of all time, and went down the list for there. And I try to keep lore-friendly mods. It's always been my thing. But I'm always have to really push graphics to a limit and see what can be done. Because I'm like, based on how old the game is, I should probably be able to run it at 4K on my desktop. Right? Now, maybe not with all the mods, but by default I can. And so I'm kind of curious to play with it some more. So I was teasing it, although I'm not sure how much time I want to put into it, especially as Game Fest is coming up right here. But it's something I was like, I am probably going to go through this again. And I was watching a few videos and some things like, yeah, damn it. I want to see how pretty I can make the game once again for the X number of times that it's come out. But I was playing with that. Also, all right, 3D printer updates and news. I've tried to mess and fix some of the issues I've been having on my updated R1 Kickstarter, where I've made it taller and everything. As I was printing some projects for my friend Zenocat, I didn't realize as I'm using the full verticality of the new print size, every once in a while I'm getting a layer shift in almost every one of my prints, where it'll just the y-axis will just move further or one way or another, and then continue printing from there. So it causes the whole model to have a shifted layer in it that looks very off. And when I'm trying to build molds for her business, it's like, shoot, I've had to cut, refix, and do some models I didn't want to do. So I'm trying to fix that from the print side. Normally that's either a processing hiccup. There's so many things that can cause a layer shift. I don't know yet if I can improve the core CPU of what's running on that printer. A lot of people have been working where old printers are doing like 8-bit OSs and hardware, and a lot of people are moving up to 32-bit for these cheaper, smaller boards, and that it just allows for bigger processing chains to go through without hiccups. I don't know if I can do that with it or if I'd have to completely rebuild like the electronics portion of it. So I haven't gone that far yet, but what I did do is adjust my print settings to make it print a bit slower, which is hopefully going to help. That was one of the big things I'm trying to accomplish with it. And just changing some of the various other settings, going back through and trying to optimize based on the experience of others. And so I'm trying to do that again. And we will see if that actually works. And actually, it looks like that print finished, so yay. Playing with that. Also, I did on my newest printer, the R2, I've been having issues where it's been mucking up lately. And in doing so, I got material around the print head, which unfortunately means that as you try to clean it off, it can sometimes grab onto your heating element and, more importantly, the thermistor. I mentioned before I had to replace the thermistor because it broke. Well, that replacement, it got mucked up again, and so it jacked up. So eventually I started looking at what do I do to replace this thing or fix it even more. And in doing this last time, I actually got filament stuck in there, and I think it baked so hot that it's almost became like a solid slug. So I was trying to disassemble this print, the hot end, and I'm not having much success with it. So I eventually went out and found via Amazon. I actually went to the official store and was like, they didn't have new print heads fully assembled in stock, but they did have all the individual pieces. And so I was basically saying, if I'm going to get one, maybe I should just invest in 2 right away. And so I priced it all out on the official parts page for Robo 3D. I think it came up to about $85 shipped for 2 new print heads with thermistors and hot heat cartridges. I was like, I could do it. But then I went on Amazon and found essentially the same part number fully put together for, I forget the percentage off from each, but I ended up with getting both of them ordered for like $60-something. Saved almost $20. And I get Prime delivery off of Amazon. So I'm looking forward to that coming in, and I should be able to just plug and play the solution in there versus, because I've been totally comfortable in the past rebuilding these print heads. It's just the R2's design is much that it's a little harder. So I've been doing that. And I'm also doing a thing right now where I'm trying to, as I print, I do like a big, kilogram spool, and we'll go through a job, but it always leaves you with some percentage left of whatever you're printing. And so you'll get to a point, where if you have a big print, you may not want to use like a half spool or a lesser spool because you're not quite sure if it's going to finish. And so right now I'm trying to, in this last print I'm doing for Xenocat, use up a lot of my littler batches of filament that I have. And so I'm going to give her a mold that is very multicolored, which should be fine.
Well, that could be cool, actually.
Yeah, because it's not a display piece. It's just something to be used and actually to make other things around. So I'm trying to go through and use up all of these little like 100-gram or 200-gram or less like pieces of filament I have. The challenge is because I don't have a runout sensor that's running on the printer, it means that I have to monitor it visually. And
okay, that could be dangerous, right? Because you could...
if I don't, and so what I have one of my security cameras from my house set up in the basement to look at my printer. And so I can check it on occasion to see where it's at. And once it gets to a certain level, I'll go down there and follow it. And then thankfully, the newer Marlin 2.0 software has it in such a 2+ software. I can just go down to change filament in the middle of a print. And it'll pause the print, move the thing off to the side, let you go through the change filament cycle, and then restart right where it was in the code. And so it's actually very easy to do, but you just have to know when to do it. And I do have, but I have not installed them, a couple filament runout sensors that I've recently got that I could go and re-enable in the firmware. I just haven't done it yet, so I have plans for it anyways. All right, last thing I was going to say is give a quick update on my broadband. I've been on residential now for about a month and so. Almost a month and a half now that we've been on residential. So far, it seems to be running fairly well. I'm able to stream this stream now at 60 frames per second, 1080p, at 8 kilobit per second constant upload stream. So that makes me happy. I will tell you, though, that at the same time, I have run into hiccups. When I do my tests, it is now reliant on the overall residential network. So rarely do I see even near that full, gigabit down. Where I think the fastest I've seen is like 817 or something like that, 800 something megabit per second down, which is solid and I'm happy with. It's over the 500, so that makes me happy. The challenge is regularly I will see that dip to somewhere in the range of just under 400, like 350-ish and stuff. Quite often.
That's still fine.
It's still significant, and it is more than enough for most of what I'm doing. It's just a concern I have, or wondering I have, of how are they managing the network such that I can see such a wide range of just my speed test numbers, right? You would think that would be more consistently closer to that top level. And I know there is, but it's just a little bit of me going like, The other challenge I've run into is I've had it hiccup bad enough where I've gotten disconnected several times at night, later at night, where not for long, but I've had it disconnect for a good like 5-10 minutes where I'm just kind of like, unacceptable, right? Not cool. But for the most part, I've been solid happy with it. I have definitely seen when doing different downloads and stuff, on occasion I'm starting to see it really pop up. I've still not gotten to a point where I've been downloading at the full bandwidth capable, even through multiple sources. But I've done a few things. And like I don't know if I mentioned it last week on the show or not, where I found a setting in Windows 10 to open up how much bandwidth it was using. Because there's a thing in there under your network settings that Windows 10, Windows 7 actually is where it first introduced. They have a load balancing thing in there that is meant to minimize the amount of CPU cycles that the network traffic needs, and it limits it.
Okay.
In doing so, though, the problem is Microsoft has yet to optimize it when they realize how much resource you have. Like, it totally makes sense if you've got a quad-core system or less. You don't want to suddenly, because you're transferring a large file, take your system down to nothing.
Oh, you talked about this last week, right?
Yeah, so I think I did.
Yeah.
And so that's still been working out well for me as a whole. So it's all of these little things as I'm tweaking, but overall it's been good. All right, that's what I got. Sir, on to you about what's been geek and such that you want to talk about before we get a little bit of news in.
We'll try. Let me think, actually. There's been we've seen a couple of things. First of all, we watched Dracula last night, the Netflix show. Oh. So I've read the book, and so has Kitten. And
so is this based off? Is it based off Bram Stoker? Stoker? Sorry.
It's yes, but it's his own interpretation.
Okay.
So it's not direct, right? But like, there's a lot of similarities, but there are some things that are clearly different. In fact, the rules for the universe are a little bit different. The rules of how vampirism works and such are different. However, I'd say most of the major things are very similar from what I've seen so far. So it's made by the same guys who made Sherlock, and I freaking love Sherlock. That was
Sherlock
one of my favorite
is good.
TV shows
Yeah,
of all
I
time.
enjoy that.
Very well done. And it follows that same model of 3 episodes a season, but each episode is like a film, right?
Yeah.
It's an hour or 20 minutes long. So yeah, we watched the first episode. Kitten's already seen the whole series, and she said that she loves it and has been trying to get me to watch it for some time. But we finally started watching one of them last night. I said to her at the end, I gave it 6 out of 10. Like, I wouldn't. It was good. It wasn't great. It was okay. I mean, I think the thing I'm interested in is how the universe works. You know, how vampirism works. All that stuff's quite interesting. Most of the acting was pretty good. A lot of the plot that tried to sell itself as, you know, really in depth and fascinating, it's pretty predictable about what was going to happen. So that was a little irritating. I quite like the atmosphere that's created. I think that it is a rather ghoulish and gory, but not in the sense of, I don't know. It's not like Saw gore. It's more like,
it's not gratuitous.
It can be. Okay, it's hard to explain. It's tastefully done gore, right?
Okay.
It's gore where there should be gore, and when the gore is there, it's not for the sake of the gore itself. It's for the sake of emphasizing the fear of Dracula.
Like I said, it's
right?
not gratuitous. It is done in a way that is storytelling versus just because of the sake of let's see how much gore we can put on the screen.
Yes. And the rules of the universe are sort of really interesting, and they're still being sort of fleshed out and explained and explored by the characters too, which I like. I look forward to seeing more. The one of the main characters is Van Helsing.
Okay.
Who is so far as what we know is that she's a female nun who doesn't really believe in God that much, which is quite and super interesting backstory. Like, she explains her beliefs very thoroughly. She says like she spent her whole life looking for God and can't find him.
Okay.
And one of the characters says to her, "So why are you still a nun? That seems a bit contrary." And she says, "The same as any woman my age, I'm married to a man and I stay with him for food and board."
Okay.
And I thought that was pretty good, right? That's quite a good explanation. So it's very enjoyable for those reasons. She's a great character, and the story is quite interesting. But the predictability was a little irritating. I am looking forward to watching more, and I will watch more. So there's that. What else? We haven't watched Picard. No, it's just not. It's not that we don't plan to. It's just not been.
Just making time.
The first episode I was so excited for. I jumped on it as soon as I could. The second one I still had some interest. Now I'm just sort of like, yeah, I'll watch it at some point. The only thing that's kind of making me want to hasten is my CBS All Access subscription that I want to cancel. But I'm not particularly like. I think I read somewhere on Reddit somebody saying, and I agree with this. The problem with it so far is it's not Jean-Luc Picard. It's Patrick Stewart, right? It's not Jean-Luc Picard, the Stoic, who is very difficult to rise to anger, who would rather carefully consider a situation. Is not about haste. He's more about careful consideration and doing with what he has. Whereas in Picard, he seems very, I don't know, there's just so much violence and action, and you gotta go here and do this, and it's urgent. And where before he was like a leader, now he just seems like Patrick Stewart playing a sci-fi guy.
It is interesting to see how they're approaching the universe where the great Admiral Picard is no longer in charge of a starship and a part of the Federation's active service, and how he is reacting to it. I've enjoyed it because I think there's a bit of realism there, because otherwise you would have had all these, it would be trying to, we couldn't get Next Generation again, right?
No, it wouldn't make sense.
We shouldn't.
It'd be kind of dull, to be honest.
Yeah, it would be a terrible story. So I'm appreciative of seeing him and how they're exploring the history of it as well a bit, where what he did at certain times and how it's bringing back. Anyhow, we'll see how it continues on. What else you got, sir?
Yeah. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. I have been playing League of Legends, but not nearly so much. I actually, but like I said, I started playing last week. I started playing some Factorio in order to continue doing some work. Was the plan, and I got completely distracted by the fact that I love Factorio, and I've started playing again. So I've now got this base. I've launched 2 rockets before, so I've technically completed the game. I don't really believe that being the end game. Kind of like, it's just not really the end. The journey is the most important thing in Factorio, truly. It's just such a beautiful, fun game. It's just so exhaustively fun. And I got pulled in, and normally I rush to the end game and rush technology. This time I've been going for more of a, I want to never have a problem of lack of resources, which is usually what happens. You're like, oh, I want to get this next thing, but I need to get like 10 million more iron to do it. I'm going for, instead of the approach is, okay, I've got this technology, I'm going to use it everywhere and upgrade my entire base with it, and then move forward. And like, so I've got like 6 different patches of each type of ore getting accessed. I've got trains back and forth going everywhere, delivering supplies. My base is it's bigger than I think I've ever had a base, even though I'm only like 3/4 of the way through the technology ladder.
Now, do you think this has anything to do with your new look on how optimization works and how you're studying the game?
No, maybe partly, I guess, but no, I think it mostly is because the train system, I've always, like, Hando's always berated me for it. He's like, you and your stupid bi-directional trains. So I have like a single track going from A to B, and when that's finished, it goes B to A, right, on the same track, and that's it. The problem is that in most efficient factories, you need to have train lines going over other train lines, right? You can't just have, and when you do that, getting bi-directional trains that have a crossroads to communicate to each other when they're passing, the logic behind that is really difficult to set up. It can be done, but it's super difficult and prone to breaking. And then when in my situation right now, I've actually got 3, like, let's just say north to south and south to north train tracks with 1 east to west, west to east going through them. And that was just such an impossibility to write out that I've said, okay, screw it. I'm actually going to learn how to do trains properly. So they're still bi-directional, but the parts where there are crossings, I make them unidirectional, right?
Okay.
So it'll always go right to go north, always go left to go south.
You're creating a path where trains can work at the same time and cross past each other when needed.
Kind of. It's more that the crossings now, instead of saying, look both ways and then maybe cross if both ways nothing's coming, now it's saying look left. If there's nothing left, then go. And it's actually much easier to set up that way.
Okay.
So I've got this nice sort of pattern of train tracks around my base, and I found myself just starting to try using trains more often for little things. Like right now, for example, I need to unlock my next level of science, and to do that, I need to get some plastic. My plastic is being generated on the south side of the base. This is on the north. So instead of me just having some stupidly long track like I normally would with a belt taking everything up there, or just telling my robots to do it, I'm instead just saying, okay, I'm going to make a train and have a train go all the way around the base and deliver it. And it'll be much faster and more efficient, but now I need to actually think of the logistics behind that, and it's kind of fun. So Factorio is just super enjoyable, and I'm enjoying a new aspect that I haven't really done before, which is the trains. And Hando said to me last night, he said, trains are probably the most fun thing in Factorio, so it's good that I'm actually exploring.
Well, even compared to like drones and such like that, when you get those set up?
Drones are satisfying because suddenly, say for example, you want to make some cliff explosives, which are basically just explosives that are used to destroy some certain type of terrain that you can't build on because it's in the way. And when you can finally unlock those, it's so satisfying to get rid of all these bloody cliffs that stop you from building all around your base. But building them, you either need like a bunch of factory stuff, which takes forever to put together, to basically make something once. It's such a pain, and you feel like you're wasting your time. That you usually use robots for, right? You just say, all right, I need like 3 plastic and 6 explosives or whatever.
Yeah, go acquire
just grab
this
it from there, and bring it here. It's lazy, right?
No, because with drones you're not setting up. It sounds like trains are what you do for your regular reoccurring tasks, and drones are what you do for your more one-off situations where it's like I need this thing, and instead of me creating a whole nother optimized network for how to do it, let me just tell you when I need this thing. You can go to these places to acquire it.
Yeah, I mean, like in reality, drones are generally more efficient, I believe, in terms of actual output, and because they go as the crow flies. Right?
Yeah,
they don't need to.
They don't get
They don't
suffered
need to
by
adhere to the
tracks.
rules of. Yeah, yeah. There's no deadlocks, right? They just do what they need to do. The problem with drones is that if you have like 6 different, yay, kitty. If you have like 6 different bases that all need drones, you need to connect them all together so the drones can move back and forth. But the problem is that when drones are flying over enemy territory, they get shot down frequently. Also, there's not often enough battery life for them to do that. So you need to have stations along the way and then you need to defend those stations, and that's a huge problem. So in reality, the best thing to do is to actually have trains to deliver drones, but then you're back to using trains again.
Gotcha.
So it's trains are better for distance, right? Drones are great for inside the base and for small quantities of things, not mass quantities.
That makes sense.
Unless you have 20,000 drones, then you can do anything you want.
Gotcha.
But you can't see the game anymore because there's just drones all over your screen.
No, that's cool.
Interlacing and bringing stuff back and forth. I've got a bunch more stuff, but we're very limited for time. So instead, I'll just say to you, sir, should we go into the next section? Do you have anything you'd like to share?
No, let's see. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into
technology, news, and more today on the Geekoscope.
So I always, when I jump into these, want to see if there's anything in particular that's like time critical that I want to bring up. And I don't think I have anything that's ridiculous in here. I had one that I wanted to just mention at least that we haven't revisited, you and I, but I thought it was only appropriate to bring up while you're here. And that is that recently, and this goes back into last month, Dying Light released update 1.23, which is supposed to improve performance and stability. And the main thing I was going to say is it was a 7 gig patch.
Wow.
And so there was a lot released with it. And they basically, all it lists is saying fixes crashing, frame rate drops, added performance and stability, various under the hood fixes, and it fixed issues with the faceless NPCs and the following, and some local community things. But because we haven't talked or played Dying Light for a little bit of time together, and maybe that's something we can plan to do at Game Fest, I just want to bring that one up.
That's a good idea, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Off to you, sir. We'll bounce it.
Sure. I've only got one thing, which is actually left over from previously. Silent Hill series is getting a soft reboot with 2 new games, a report says.
Interesting.
So these are in the works, according to a new report from a reliable leaker via Eurogamer. This article itself is from IGN. Twitter user Aesthetic Gamer was the first to drop the new report. Aesthetic Gamer is known for reliably leaking previous Capcom titles, although Silent Hill is developed and published by Konami, and divulged some details with the supposed 2 new Silent Hill games. According to Aesthetic Gamer, one game will be a soft reboot of the franchise, while the other will be an episodic experience similar to Telltale games or Until Dawn.
Interesting.
But that's super interesting, and I was waiting for that because you know what, the demo was so ridiculously good, and it was years ago now. I remember it came with PlayStation 4. You could get that demo with when PS4 first came out, but they dropped the whole project sadly because it looked so good. It was so scary, even though the actual gameplay was just like 3-4 corridors and 2 rooms or something. But it terrified people. So I couldn't wait for something like that to come out because it was something that since it was on PlayStation, I remember playing this with friends and us all avidly watching it together because it was so scary and it was fun watching the person playing it always looking behind them and feeling that realism. And yeah,
it was a legit good series for it. Yeah, it's one of those ones that, especially in a time where Resident Evil has been able to get away with doing remakes of the original games, to hear that they might do something else with the Silent Hills franchise makes a lot of sense. I know a ton of people who love Silent Hill. I never actually played it, but I still recognize characters from it. I did watch the movie from it, and it's known enough among the horror genre that it just makes sense. And so,
you never played the demo?
Well, no, I never played through them, but I am very aware. I think I might have played the demo once on back when I used to get the demo CDs from PlayStation Network's actual PlayStation's magazine when I was subscribed to it because I'd get demos back on the. This is old school.
Sorry, I'm not talking about the original. I'm talking about the PlayStation 4 version. Did you ever play that?
No, I don't have a PlayStation 4.
Oh, dude, we got maybe when we're there we can put on YouTube or something. Even just watching it be played is quite scary.
Well, that's the thing. I'm very aware of it and know it, and I know what's scary about it, and so I can imagine this is just a really exciting thing for anybody who likes that series. Because
it's very well done. All right.
So my last one, actually, I do have one last one I want to throw in there, and this is that this was shared by Hando as well as just for in general. I saw it around, but something that's definitely for people like me, maybe for others. Steam is offering a new service or aspect to their service called Play Next, which is now going live on Steam. And this is designed specifically for people I feel targeted. It says, those who struggle with finding something to play in a sea of games in their Steam library can now have that Game Hub new feature help them. And so it says that, this real short. Steam launched a new feature just recently that just might help players with vast Steam game libraries. Have you ever had a difficult time figuring out what to play as you're drowning in the many games in your library after all these years of participating in Steam sales? Steam's new Steam Labs feature could help you out. With Steam Labs' Play Next feature, the launcher picks a game in your library for you and recommending games based on your gaming preferences. So essentially, it goes through what you already own in your library to suggest what you might want to play next. Instead of where they just do like, hey, here's games for you to buy, Valve's actually working forward to say, like, here's games you already own but have not played and you might like based on what you've been playing. So I like that idea, as I am also one of those people that has over 400 games in my Steam library, of which more than half have never been installed. So throwing that out there. Yep.
Like, I hate those stats. That, like, I've got a couple of friends like Graham who's like got like an 80% average completion on every game, and I'm just like, how? Like, most games, like you said, haven't even been installed on my computer. Never mind played. Never mind try to like complete. In fact, even games I enjoy are rarely complete. You know.
Yep. So,
right.
All right, it is time for us to get out of here. I have to run because today is a celebration of very happy birthday to our friend Shady's 1 year old now, youngest son. And so I'm going to run directly from here to go to a party where they're celebrating a year of him being in this world. And so,
fantastic.
But with that, Ken, could you please lead us out for the week?
You have been listening to ShowX live on twitch.tv and on YouTube. Thank you so much for liking, following, subscribing, call to action stuff, all that. You know what to do. As well as that, check us out on twitter.com/VTWShowX, twitter.com/.dead, twitter.com/drkenreed. And you can check out the show, Mr. Wayne, and myself in all these different places. You can also find us on Facebook on the ShowX page, Show Space X. We share loads of memes there, particularly Picard memes right now and Witcher memes, because those are things that are in my mind that I stumble across more often than not. You can also find us on reddit.com/ShowX, Instagram.com/ I have no idea. I think it's VTWShowX.
That's still new.
ShowX, I'm
still trying to find things to put there.
Yeah, all we've got is our logo there so far. But, give us a follow. Who knows? Give us ideas, tag us and stuff. I don't know. And patreon.com/ShowX. A minimum of $1 per month is very much appreciated. It helps keep the show afloat and pay for all these various things. As you recently heard, we're dropping the $500 every couple of years service to support all of the audio, because that is frankly unnecessary, considering that it's less of a station, more of just Wayne and I at the moment. So why would we, host all of that stuff? So there's stuff like that we need to. It costs money, real world money, and software, hardware, etc. So even $1 a month can really help us just to stay afloat and keep the show going, and that's very much appreciated. You can also email on the show at showx@vtwproductions.com. We'll keep that email address no matter what, so do send us an email there as well. Thank you all for listening, and we very much appreciate it. Tell your friends, and be sure to like and subscribe and so on, hit notifications or whatever. We appreciate all the above. Love you all, and we'll be live next week, both in Denver.
Yes, look forward, be hype. Next week's show we'll have, at minimum, Ken and I in the same room checking things out. And I think it'll be one of the first times I actually utilize multiple versions of the mic setup I have now from this overhanging mics, where a second one actually down and being used. So we'll see how that goes. As well as just whoever else wants to join in the Game Fest fun. So look forward to that. Share, let your friends know. It helps us out significantly. And so with that, we are out of here. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we will catch you again next week. Bye, everybody!
Goodbye. See you next zombie. Good night. I forgot.